Alright guys, welcome back to the show. This is part 2 of the garage door install, and we will be covering in this video how to install your springs and all the hardware that go with it, and we're going to cover how to correctly and safely wind your springs. So let's get started. So we're going to take all this stuff that's laying out here on the table right now, and we're going to get it put up. And first question, or first thing you need to do is figure out which springs, which drums go where. And if you look on the inside of the drums, you'll see there's an R right there, so that's right side. So that'll be going the right side. If you look at this spring, it says LW, which stands for left wind, which you would think that means it should go on the left side. However, that is not the case. It goes on the right side, and if you look, it's marked with black paint, and typically garage springs are labeled with paint. If they're black, they go on the right side, and if they have red marked on them, they go on the left side. So you can see this one has RW, so that's a right wind. This drum, if you look, it's marked in two places. You got an L there, and then you got an L on the inside. So I got these bearing holders. One goes on each side of the garage door, and then we got the center plate, which will hold the center bearing, which will go in the end of the springs. And although I cannot recommend that you use these for your winding, this is 1/2-inch rebar, and it works like a charm. These are cut at 15 inches. I've never had a problem with them bending as I installed the springs. However, your directions are going to say to use cold rolled steel. Alright, so this is one of the center bearings that will go into one of the springs, and then the other spring just gets a plastic bushing to fill that space. And then these are all the nuts and bolts that you will need. One other tool that I find very useful in getting the springs and cables and everything the way they need is the pair of vice grips. And that's to clamp on here to hold that where you want it. I'll show you that when we get to that point. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get these end plates installed, and it's pretty simple. They just get bolted, lagged into the wall, and then bolted to the top of the track. Alright, first thing is we're going to take this bolt out right there, because it's going to go through this plate. So now that we got that out, we're going to take the plate, and the angle, this angle is going to face the side. And you're going to set it just above, like so. And you're going to take this bolt you just took out, and we're going to put it back in. So although this just had one for it, I got an extra one just to make this extra strong. So I got those in there, snug those up. Alright, so now I have this fastened to this upper track. Now I'm going to fasten it to the wall with 2 lags. So I'm going to pre-drill holes, and then I'll make sure it's level before I put my bolts in. All right, now you can see that all of that is tied together. I got 2 lags through there, I got a lag through here, and then I got 2 bolts bolting this whole thing together. And it is sturdy, it's not going anywhere. So now I just have to do the same thing on the other side, and then we will put the rod and everything else together. All right, so the garage door is behind me. So that's actually the left of the door, that's actually the right looking out. So, like we talked about before, the LW stands for left wind. However, this goes on the right side and will be marked typically with black paint. So it's got a black paint on it, that goes on the right side. The drums are marked in 2 different places usually, which side they go on. As you can see, this one's got an R. So that goes on there, and then same on the left side. So now it's time to start putting all this on. You're gonna have a plastic bushing when you have a dual spring system, which is what I have. So we got, in a dual spring, you got a bearing, center bearing, and then you got a plastic bushing, and it doesn't matter which one goes on which side, but they literally slide in. One slides in that spring, and the other one slides in there. So those will be the first things that go on the tube. So we'll slide the bearing on, then we'll slide the spring on, and then we'll slide the drum on. And the drum with the locking bolts on it, that faces the inside. And you can see this also has black paint on it to indicate the right. So we'll slide that on. And then we can do that same process over here on this side. Slide the bushing on. Spring. And the drum. Now that we got that done, we can go ahead and hook up this center plate, which gets bolted to the wall. And you either have to put a 2x6 up there that's bolted into the frame of the structure. In my case, I have a big 1 3/4 LVL header that this will bolt to, which is that is also screwed and lagged to the structure, so this will be good and solid. This taller part goes up, so it'll sit on there like so. We'll put that bushing in this spring, and then we'll push the bearing in this one, and then these bolts are going to hold them together through this plate. So what I'm going to do, I got to kind of rotate this. I'm going to put the bolt through there. It's going to go through the center plate, and then it's going to go through the other spring, and then we're going to put a nut on it. And then that pulls that all together. And then we're going to do the same thing down at the bottom. Typically these are lock nuts, so I turn the bolt. All right. Now this whole thing is ready to go up. So what we'll do now that we have all this up on there is we'll lift this whole thing up there at once. We'll slide one end through that bearing, And we'll go far enough through that we can get this one up and then slide it back. Slide it in far enough, and you get that piece in there. All right, so now that that's up there, you can center your spring, but in a situation where you have high lift extensions, if you're going to do a door opener that comes down the middle, you can offset these springs up to 10 inches either way. So what I do is offset them about 4 inches one way or the other, just so you have room for your track bar to go and mount right above the spring. Otherwise, that might get in the way. That sits up about 2 inches higher, that little bracket. So my advice is to offset that a few inches just so you have room for your main door opener track to fasten up there. I haven't completely decided what kind of door openers I'm going to do. I'm thinking about the jack shaft openers because I think it'd be really nice, and that would also give me an option to put more lights up here if I wanted. The lags you'll use to fasten that center plate are these ones that have red paint on them, and that is to indicate that though that bracket is under pressure when those springs are wound. And you never ever ever want to take these center bolts loose without unwinding your springs, or you're going to be in for a surprise. All right, now that we got that up there, we're going to take the drums, slide them over, and get our cables hooked up, and then we'll wind the springs. All right, so now making sure your cable is all on the inside of these angles. You're going to hook it in this little groove here, rotate the drum towards you, keeping the cable in the groove. If you let go of this, it's going to all come unspooled. So now that you got it in there, you want to push your drum up against this piece right here. I'm going to make sure I still have 2.5 inches of the bar sticking out. Just like 2 1/4 moved. So perfect right there. Now, what I'm going to do is you want to get this cable as taut as you can before you tighten it. So I'm going to rotate the drum down, and with a lot of pressure on it, I'm going to snug these locking bolts up on this drum. And to determine how tight you do these, basically once I make contact with this bar, with this bolt, I'll do 3/4 to 1 full turn. So that's 1 full turn on that one. 1, 2, 3. And that's a full turn on that one. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to take your vice grips, put vice grips on there. I'm going to use a board to protect my ceiling. Just pull down a little bit, so then that keeps tension on it while you do the other side. Now that's locked on there. And this cable is taut as well. All right, so you can see on this end piece here that there are 4 holes and they're equally spaced. So each time you rotate one, that's 1/4 turn. And I'll explain that as we tighten these here in a second. All right guys, so you can see where I got my vice grips and my block holding that tight. You want to leave that there in place until you get this next step done. Otherwise, if you let that go, the cables come loose. So you'll take your winding bars, which as I said before, they say to use cold rolled steel, which that's what you should use. But I'm telling you what I use is this 1/2-inch re-rod, cut it 15 inches, and then I've slightly ground down the rib so it barely fits in there. And my springs, when you get your garage door in the directions, it'll say how many turns your springs need. And mine call for 8 3/4. So this has 4 spots on it. So 8 times 4 is 32. 3/4 is 3/4. So that's 35 quarter turns. So as I turn this a quarter at a time, I'm going to count up to 35. So I'm going to stick my first bar in. That's 1/4 turn. 2, 3, 4, 5. Another very important tip is stay to the side. So if you were to let this go, this doesn't come back and slap you in the face. So I'm at 5. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 35. All right guys, so that's 35 right there. So what I kind of do is either get a block of wood you can put behind this and let it rest, or you can hold it. I get my wrench. Now that you got it turned 35, the amount of times that you need, you're going to tighten these lock bolts. Now you can gently let off the pressure and that spring is wound. So if we want to be ultra safe while winding these springs, actually not only not standing directly in front of the bars, you should place yourself away from the spring versus like I did that when I was in front of the spring. Now the chances of this spring breaking and coming off of here are pretty slim. I guess it's better to be safe than sorry. So we're gonna get this one wound 35 times. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. Alright, now that we got that done, we can take our vice grips off. Now these springs are holding tension on those cables. Alright, so if I did my job right, this door should easily open. And now we can check to see if it's nice and square and everything. And that's it. Your door opens nice and smooth like that. What you want to do is you want to go along and check how far your rollers are out of your hinges. And it should be close to 1/2 inch, just like you set them down here. And I checked them, and they are all right at 1/2 inch, give or take. And we should be good to go. So, all right guys, well that was part 2 of the garage door installation series. The next thing I'm gonna do in the next show is I'll show you how to attach all the hardware that we got that was extra. This typically doesn't come with doors, but I'll show you how to attach the hardware that I got that makes the door look all pretty, I guess you could say. And then I will do another show once I get my garage door openers. You know, leave me a comment. What do you think I should go with? Should I go with the jack shaft lifter, or should I go with a conventional garage door opener? I'd like to know your guys' opinion and your thoughts. I appreciate you guys watching this series. Hopefully it was helpful, and we will catch you on the next show.